Hello viewers, I'm SB and welcome back to Sunless Skies, where today we are embarking on a whole new adventure, but before we do so, we have a couple orders of business to attend to. First of all, the train, probably the most important order of business. We have a whole different set of stats to work with now, which means that not all of our previous equipment is actually equipable. You can see I fiddled around with it already, I jammed in everything that we could jam in. It turns out you need a little bit more iron than we have to use these fitted cupboards, and a person with no heart cannot install a toilet. Who knew? So we're a little bit short on cargo space relative to what we were running before, way short on crew space, but in the long run I don't think these things are so terrible, and it's not totally unreasonable for us to get to 50 50 iron soon. We can get back some of this hold. Part of the problem is that, of course, we are lower level than the previous character, and so we just have fewer points of stats in total. But another thing is that we currently have no officers, so that's a whole lot of stats that we're missing. My impression of the officers is that you just sort of pick them up at random, like they're available at random ports. So I'm sure as we sail around, we'll get them. And maybe there are some that we have not yet seen, maybe some that only occur in Eleutheria or the Blue Kingdom, perhaps. But, of course, we're going to have to go through the Reach no matter what, because there's no way to get to Eleutheria or the Blue Kingdom from Albion, at least as far as we're aware. So we're going to have to find some officers. But for now, let's focus on what we can do with just the stats we have in hand. So let's head over to St. Dominic's Augmentations. We have lower overall stats, but we also have way more veils than we used to, and that might be relevant. Let's have a look at the blue stuff here. So we don't... Yeah, the first thing we should probably look at is weapons, right? We've been using the same weapons for basically the entire series, and to be fair, the Reclaimed Marauder Mangonel is a fine, fine weapon. Runs a little hot, maybe, but on the whole, pretty good. Like, what else do we have access to? We have the Cotterell and Hathersage Beulah, a short-range, rapid-firing gun capable of quick turnarounds, maybe a little bit more similar to what we see on the Dreadnoughts. 5 damage for 8 heat. So it's got a better damage to heat ratio, assuming that you're actually hitting with a lot of the projectiles. It's hard to know without being able to try it out exactly what rapid-firing means, and how, like, what percentage of projectiles we should expect to hit. Of course, we have the Mine Layer. I'm coming around on this a little bit. I definitely spend some amount of time just moving away from the enemies, and with something mounted on the back of the train, we wouldn't necessarily have to get shot directly in the face quite so often. Certainly, there is something to be said for that. We do have the mirrors to get a +8 hold thing for... Wow, this is pretty good. Wait a minute. In our bank, we have +7 hold... Oh, because this is a bridge slot item. That's why this is worse. It goes in a slot that is less contested. Okay, what else do we want to run here? There is the Caminus Yard's Black Jape. An automatic shotgun which compensates in efficiency, what it makes up in... or for what it lacks in power. 20 damage, 30 heat at 400 range. Honestly, doesn't really seem that much better than the shotgun we're using now. And we can't use it right this second anyway. We, of course, can't run the fitted cupboards. We could get 11 points of hold for our support slot. So, like, we don't really need to be running dual canning systems. I pretty much just put everything back in the train that would actually fit in the train. So right now we're running this as 4 points of hold. We could easily replace it with 11 points of hold. What about this? An Eruption of Hateful Radiance with a light homing ability. That's interesting, actually. It can be detonated remotely with enormous power. Must be mounted in a large weapon slot, which we totally have one of. So what if we got rid of the shotgun? Because we really do almost all of our work with the Mangonel. Then again, this is sort of in the same role that the Mangonel's in, and also it generates about 1 billion heat. That is a little bit more than the weapon that I'm concerned about it already being too hot. So it does 15 damage with 15 blast damage. assuming a target that's directly hit suffers both of those, it is a little bit more damaging than the mangonel, and the fact that it homes in is pretty cool. Okay, so if we wanted to buy both of these, we're going to end up a little bit short of 4K. We don't have a ton of money, but what we do have is a ton of trade goods. So you can see I picked up the 2 prospects that were available here because there's absolutely no reason not to pick them up. Crates of munitions, the floating parliament. Unfortunately, we did sell all of our crates of munitions in order to pick up the Moloch liner in the first place. And literature to the Avid Horizon. I do not want to go to the Avid Horizon, but we do have the literature. This could be a good way to make some quick money. So let's have a look at our bank. What can we bear to part with? We don't quite have the mirrors to run the Ratronaut just yet. We have all these caged catches with no real idea what to do with them. We have a ton of barrels of ours, and barrels of ours seem to be very easy to come by. Souls and crockery and tea. So at some point we're going to have to go to the Reach, right? We're going to have to go to the Reach because there's no other way to the places we're going. I wonder if it might be a good idea to try to hold off on selling most of this stuff, until we actually get to the Reach, because there we're going to have additional prospects that I would like to have the goods to fulfill, but the blue quality stuff in the shop here is not available in the Reach, so we do have to get this now. So with that in mind, to the Spitalfields market, what do we think we could definitely afford to part with? Bank. Well, we don't need 25 gourds of Chorister Nectar, and if we get a prospect requiring Chorister Nectar in the Reach, we certainly know how to get a whole bunch. That sort of solves our problems right there. It's good to be good at fighting bees, right? So let's go for... Do we actually need 11 more points of hold? Or should we maybe install something else in that slot? What did we have in there before? After we switched over to the bridge-mounted canning system, what was I running in that slot? Whatever it was, it seems like we don't have it anymore. It's possible that not all of our train modules passed down, and of course I'm very forgetful, so I couldn't tell you what it was. I definitely want to try out the new missile. It was the thing our previous captain couldn't have run. So do we want to keep the shotgun, or do we want to keep the mangonel? If we have the missile and the mangonel together, and we manage to hit with both of them, it would be a truly impressive amount of damage. And I feel like I don't use the emanation all that much. Yeah, let's just swap this in right here. We'll give that thing a try, see if it is extremely cool. I hope that it is extremely cool. We are a little short on possessions. Don't have a lot of Tales of Terror or Sky stories. So it might not be a bad idea, actually, to run an assaying device for a while. We would lose 4 points of hull by pulling this out. Or 4 points of hull. 4 points of hold by pulling this out. But maybe that's okay. And this is a pretty cheap buy. Yeah, we may as well run it for a little while. Let's see exactly what it does. Get in there. Okay, and that means that we are not installing the other hold space option. I mean, 24 spaces in the hold is still very good. So is there anything else we want to do? We unfortunately cannot sort by slot. In theory, we should be able to get to 50 iron fairly quickly, especially if we manage to pick up particular officers. We could probably do it by, like, next level. So yeah, I think we're going to take the train out like this, which of course means that we are going to dump some of this stuff in the hold. Don't need it right now, probably won't need it later, but we also definitely don't need the money from selling it. And with 2,200 sovereigns of walking around money, we're not exactly in any danger of going broke. So, next question. What is our first order of travel business? We have our ambition. We, of course, were asked to smuggle stuff immediately. We're probably going to get into this at some point, but probably not right this second. We remember that we inherited the Orphean from Captain Whitlock, and that we delivered the box, and also that we fixed the clock tower in Port Prosper, but nothing else, huh? I understand why we still have these. These are obviously momentous. These are important. I don't know why this, of all things, is the only other thing that's still completed. We may fly around and find that there are things that need to be redone, and if there's a lot of that, I'll probably do some of it off camera, just so you guys don't have to sit through the same stuff over again. Alright, let's have a look around London. We need to get our train fixed, first of all. Please repair my locomotive. See, a lot of the early parts of the previous character will not happen with this character because we're already well outfitted and we already have a lot of money. We don't have to go through that very early section. Hey, I've heard tale of a less than legal organization operating out of the Steam and Sapphire Yards. Could you believe it? We'll just reach out through our criminal contacts, you know. We have friends in low places. So we've heard about the new street line. And I don't know that we even have to talk to him. I mean, we know what the deal is. Okay. So now we have that available. Let's have a look around London, just in case there happens to be an officer who might want to hang out. Ambition, collect your inheritance. In their will, your predecessor bequeathed you one final item, crucial to your search for the Martyr King's Cup. This is a little, you know, we're going to have to fudge some of this text. They don't know exactly the story that we're out on. I'm a little afraid to click, because there's no way they're going to throw, a roll at us immediately, right? Probably the ways in which we can fail this will at least be semi-obvious. The lawyer's office is so cramped that her desk fits snugly from wall to wall. Her route of escape is not visible. Perhaps some kind of secret hatch, or perhaps she simply eats and sleeps in her chair. Your final endowment, she says, carefully pulling a brown parcel from her bottom drawer. The testator was most insistent that this item be bequeathed separately. Alright, we're receiving a package here, an ichor-stained journal. Tearing apart the wrapping paper, you reveal a small black notebook, its front cover stained in unidentifiable reds and golds. So that sounds familiar. This once belonged to the Dismal Chamberlain, steward of the most serene mausoleum. Then it belonged to your predecessor. Now it is yours, its secrets waiting to be unlocked. Every page is written in baffling code. It would be remiss of me if I did not mention, says the lawyer, that along with the journal, the testator enclosed a note requesting that you destroy it. Under no circumstances should you attempt to decipher it. So obviously, for our purposes, the story of us acquiring the journal is a little bit different than we're given here. Probably what happened is that the erstwhile archivist had it locked away because he didn't want to have the risk of being drawn to trying to decipher it. He knew how that urge would overtake him, and also at that point he was already worried about knowing some things that he shouldn't ought to know. So when we caught up with him and shouted at him a lot and he shouted back, eventually he was like, okay, fine, here's the thing, you think you can do better. And he told her, I don't know, how to get to the safety deposit box or whatever. But now we have the Chamberlain's Journal. So we don't want to get involved in this nonsense. We don't have any officers to pick up here. Like 5 sky stories. You will study it automatically while you explore. That might be a little bit dangerous, huh? We don't want that to trigger any checks before we have the stats to probably survive those checks. But I guess the best way to deal with that would be to get out and earn some XP and find some people. So, I think we have nothing left to do in London. Let's get out and all that stuff I just said. Okay, looks like our chart is still correct. We still know all the things we used to know. I guess the smart thing to do here... Hold on, actually. One smart thing to do here would be to check... Where does it tell us about our reputations? Is that on the character screen? So the Stovepipe's fortunes are low, but their reputation... Okay, we are not yet known very well to either of the factions. Basically what I was trying to figure out here is if there's any chance we're going to be horribly killed, the way that our predecessor was almost horribly killed. The storm that speaks, you are watched. A god of the sky, the storm that speaks rarely leaves its palace in the past. When it does visit the skies, The storm seeks out or causes grief, melancholy, and regret. Huh, I wonder how we came to be watched. Well, that's definitely concerning. Oh, you know what, actually. I just had a thought. I can't remember how we got into the business of delivering people for the new street line, but we should see if that's a thing that's actually open to us yet. And then, I promise, we will leave. I know, it's 15 minutes into the episode and we've gone nowhere. We have to win the Bookkeeper's Trust, that's right. So we need 4 points of gratitude first. Not something we necessarily need to be, like, in a great hurry to get, just be cool to have. Alright, let's start by going north, because the things to the north are a little friendlier. We'll check out Brabazon, get a couple of easy port reports, and then also, hopefully, pick up some people who would like to be officers in our command. We probably won't spend a ton of time here in Albion. I'm kind of eager to get out to Eleutheria and the Blue Kingdom. So we'll probably do a quick circle here, find out about the new street line, see if we can get any officers, because it seems like it would be really nice to have some officers, and then we'll head for newer lands. I mean, first for older lands, and we should definitely have a look around the ports over there as well. But then for newer lands. I'm just saying, I know Eleutheria came to be the new Hybris. Maybe don't expect us to get there this video. We have some important stuff to do. We are not in a position yet where we need to lower terror, so what do we want to do? I guess break open a coffin? Oh, it is worth noting that we're actually bad at this action now. Well, like I said, let's not spend a lot of time in Albion, shall we? Let's break open a coffin and see if there's anything cool inside one. Hey, we found ourselves a condemned experiment. We don't really need to turn these things in for money, at least as far as we're aware. So we can just accumulate peculiarities for the moment. Maybe be a little bit more careful about those coffins. Yeah, it's weird to be flying around with no officers. Are these... Okay, these rocks are things we can go over. What was that sound? Wait a minute. Was there always a huge storm here? Now, I wonder if this is the Well of the Wolf. How do we manage to miss... I guess I usually go up around the right side of Nursery 12. It's actually pushing us away. I'm not doing that. Huh. Yeah, maybe that was the Well of the Wolf that the devil wanted to visit the whole time. I can't believe that's so close to Brabazon. I can't believe it's so close to a place we've flown so many times before without us noticing. It is possible that I am not the most observant person in the sky. I'll cop to that. Is this the right way even? Yeah, okay. I'll say once again, I totally get the design decision to have all the trains move kind of slowly, but also it'd be kind of neat if, you know, the more expensive ones were a little faster. Just thinking, like, from the standpoint of it definitely being the case that you have seen a lot of the game by the time you can afford one of the good locomotives, although I guess we bought a pretty fancy one without going to even half of the maps. Okay. Okay, cool. A clay conductor. Do we... I would need sky stories. Shoot. Alright, perhaps not. Perhaps not at this moment. Well, let's get in here. So we're gonna have to go on an actual tour of the Brabazon work world. Right, I forgot about that. Let's attempt to converse with an overseer. Okay. Gave us a couple of sky stories. Well, I know one thing we can do with those. Get ourselves a conductor. Hearts by 6, iron by 2. You asked the clay conductor where he would like to hold the ceremony. Ah, yes, that's right. We had to give him the little ceremony first. Say a few words. So, this character is a lot worse at hearts, and so is a lot better at, like, moving people through the power of words, which I think is an appropriate difference. But it's definitely going to have us making some different character choices in some of these events that we've already seen. We'll make him speak. Finally, the clay conductor speaks. He was a clay man. He traveled on the Figaro. A pause. He was a good singer. Okay, that's, those are all facts, I assume. Alright, well, it turns out we can't get a port report here, but we can get an officer. Let's make sure that we assign him properly. Okay. There's some stats for you. What's the point of affiliation he gives us? Okay, with the Academy. I think that our character would have a bit of a difficult relationship with the idea of the Academy, and it's a different difficult relationship than the one the Archivist had. Because the Archivist was a promising youth who was cast out for violating the rules, at least the social rules. Whereas Sister Patel here never would have had access to any sort of formal learning in the first place, but probably at some point would have yearned for it. Maybe not now. By now, probably there's a fair amount of disillusionment. But at some point in her youth, she probably wished she could have gone to the fancy school instead of having to hang out with the Fisher Kings. Oh, jeez. Right, enemies. Okay, well, I guess an opportunity to test our new weapons. Ooh, okay. Can hit myself with the explosion. Right, we fight from further away now. Okay, I managed to get out of the way of some of that. Let's try to test the homing capabilities. Okay, it arcs a little bit, but you still have to be pretty close. He's pretty close to dead. I just need a moment where I can get a clean shot. Try to get him between volleys here. Alright, so firing both of the guns at once instantly overheats us, but it's a lot of damage if it connects. Oh, interesting. Claim its weaponry. And it's a Veils roll. I don't think we've seen this with these guys yet, right? What exactly is its weaponry? The Tears of Astolat. It is delicate work. The trick is unscrewing the bolts along the diagonals. Loosen one, then attack its opposing partner. Slowly, it eases away from the Dreadnought's hull. Once aboard, you can take a closer look. The gun is half vitrified. Miraculously, its glass springs and mechanisms still work. Bullets go in, razored glass flechettes come out. Okay, hold on a second. Let's look at the stats on this thing. It's a hearts-based weapon. Well, that's unfortunate. Ensure that the last thing your enemy sees is their own screaming face reflected in the glass. Maybe I'm okay with not using this weapon. That's screwed up in a way that I balk at a little bit. Yeah, that's a real shame that that's a hearts-based weapon, that we never got it on the Archivist. And then we immediately get it on this character, who will probably never have 50 points of hearts. I was thinking about it a little bit, and I kind of love the idea that Sister Patel was so inspired by the Song of the Skies, and that there's going to be so much in common between the two characters, but that they don't get along and kind of can't stand each other. She's like very disappointed with what she sees as his enormous cowardice. Oh, that's got to be guests, right? You can see it try to arc. It tried to fix my bad aim. Wait. I don't want to get caught in the tentacle end. Yeah, it arcs very slightly, and it does it better at longer range, I would imagine. Okay, everything's fine. Nope. Trying really hard not to let him get the tentacle end pointed at us. Just good advice for dealing with things that have tentacles. Damn it. Part of the problem is that the sideways dodge is not super meaningful against these things because they can just also dodge sideways. Oof. Okay, so if I hit the button again while it's in the air, I can manually detonate it. Oh, so he's got one too. Did they always? I don't feel like we saw that weapon before. Okay, that dealt some damage, it sounded like. So it seems like the, maybe if that was in fact damaging, then the damage area of the explosion is larger than the graphic of the explosion. Alright, we're learning. Yeah, that definitely is doing damage. Okay, I like this weapon. Yeah, it enables a very different fighting style. Okay. It has considerable range, too. Further than the mangonel, even. I detonated that too early. I think that could have been a hit. Alright, we're learning. We're learning our new toys. I actually might not have had to manually detonate that. He swung back into it. Try again. This is bad. He's definitely going to hit us here. Oh. Sort of gave up an opportunity there. Let's see if we can... Yeah, that thing where he, like, dives to the side is a real problem. And I definitely hit myself with the explosion there. Alright, well... Do we search the wreckage for valuables? I think we just take the repairs, honestly. I'm sad we never got to see the weapon made of guests. I guess when they released the Albion patch, they must have taken that out. Because I think that's when we stopped getting the option to harvest guests from things like that. Okay, to the Floating Parliament. This character, sadly, is not quite as well respected in places like this, but we can at least get a report. And then my plan was to go to the Royal Society, but I'm wondering if maybe we should head back, because we took a lot of damage there. Oh good, guests. If there's one, there may already be more. Let's conduct a search. We are not as good at this as we used to be. Hey, what a surprise. Alright, your some guests have arrived quality has gone. Through a thorough stripping panels... Huh. So, did we get them all? I mean, it says, was that all of them? There's no way to be sure. You have guests aboard, but then it immediately says, no, you no longer have guests aboard. Maybe we actually did get them all. It's going to take a little while for me to get used to the, used to using the new weapon, but I think we'll probably actually be a little bit safer in combat than we used to be. You unlock this by not having any in possession of an ant. There's nobody to yell about the quality of the scones. Let's just enjoy a scone on the lawn. Uh-oh. You sit back on the lawn, scone in one hand and knife in the other. However, you become aware of sharp looks aimed in your direction. Okay, I know that this is a thing among British people. In fact, I've seen some of it in the comments of this very series. I know that some people have very strong feelings about this, but I don't know what is signified here. I don't know what it means to be a person who spreads the jam first. Here's the thing. I don't even like jam and cream, is what I'm gonna tell everybody, as a way of avoiding the whole problem. Both sides of the protest stare at you, silently slurping their tea with long, disapproving looks. Yeah, Sister Patel has trouble fitting in places, I think. Alright, let's go far enough into the palace to compile a port report. And there is a welcoming party. I don't remember what happens. Ah, yes, that's right. We are immediately asked to vote in a direction. Well, Sister Patel is a better liar than the Archivist was. So I guess we have to decide, to what degree is she defiant and to what degree is she careful and dishonest? I think in a place like this she would pretend to be in support of the Empress. I don't think she actually would be, but she's better at playing along. The two scribble down your answer. Thank you, says the man with the yellow rosette and turns to his opposing number. Okay, yep, same. I believe that's almost exactly the same text. So we don't need to spend a lot of time here. Let's just make sure that we look around. Near them you spot a fellow in a suit, swaying uncertainly. Oh, the guy who falls over the edge. I think that we should not run over there. We should not blow our cover, so to speak. Let's just lay low. Sister Patel spends a lot of time laying low. The drunk man peers over the edge and begins relieving himself. Finished and content, he bends over to adjust his clothing and topples over into the abyss. Well, I suspected that was how that was going to end. Not so much with the relieving himself, but the other part. Okay, an election's been called in Lustrum. Turns out we could be a member of Parliament, if only we wanted to fly all the way to Lustrum. Who knows? Maybe we will. Maybe. Did we get anything out of observing the protest? Oh, we got a little terror reduction. Crowd continues raging against stuff. Of course, nobody's political opinions could actually be important, right? These people are selling an awful lot of tea. Well, we may as well take it. I think we're probably headed back to London in the very near future, so we can be rid of it. And it seems like we are going through supplies pretty quickly here. So I might just headed straight back to London. The Royal Society's far away. We can get both fuel and supplies there. And we need port reports if we're going to unlock the new street line. And it really sucks that we couldn't get the one from Brabazon. We could do, like, the Royal Society, buy a bunch of stuff, come back home, hit World... Man, it's gonna... Acquiring 4 port reports is actually a huge pain in the ass if you can't get Brabazon. This is the sort of thing that I might edit around a little bit in the future, but I think I'm going to keep you guys with me for the moment here, just so that if we run into some terrifying stuff in the sky, we can adjust to the new weapons together. So I'm going to generally want to stay further away. The Archivist was... You know, all of the Archivist's training in violence and the power of force came at the hands of a... He was a boxer or something, wasn't he? So, a little bit more of an up-close style. You gotta imagine Sister Patel probably wants to go about things a little bit differently, and the weapons that we have now are tailored to match. Why put yourself right in harm's way? That seems very foolish. Alright, being near the clock has reduced our terror by quite a bit, actually. Who doesn't love a good, obviously destroyed landmark floating ethereally in space? Why wouldn't that calm us down? Okay, we gotta remember to be, like, at least that far away from people when we shoot at them with the explodey weapon. We can still mangonel people from right up next to them. Alright, so I just need to get a little bit of a turnaround here. Ah, didn't quite destroy him there. He's in pretty bad shape, though. Okay, a little bit of home in action on that. I miss with the mangonel by very little, very frequently. So even a weapon that curves slightly is definitely going to help us out a lot. Alright, we're pretty good at breaking into the captain's cabin. Let's see what's in here. Found ourselves a barrel of unseasoned hours. Well, that's alright, I guess. So I played a little bit of Sunless Skies the other day. I sat down with Elise and we gave it another shot. I mentioned at the beginning of the series that I had played like half an hour or so of it. And part of the reason, no, pretty much all the reason that I only played about half an hour was that I sort of bounced off of it. I don't know if it was presentation or the mechanics or just the mood I was in at the time, because I've certainly had that happen where I played something or started to watch something, was like, ugh, I'm not, this is bad, I don't like this. And then come back to it, you know, a year later in a different mood and all of a sudden liked it. But I bounced off of it again pretty bad the other day. There's something to it. I don't know, a lack of polish maybe? Something about it feels a little bit more amateurish to me. But I think people use that in a very pejorative way, and I'm using it in a pejorative way now, but I don't think that it's necessarily a thing that has to be bad. But the way that Sunless Sea feels to me to be amateurish is a bad thing for me. Like, I was not super pleased. Also, it seemed like it was super hard to not take damage in combat in that game. I mean, I just had the starting boat with the starting weapon, and I'm sure the whole idea there is that you're terrible at combat. But even getting into a fight with, like, the weakest enemies, it seemed very difficult to comport myself in a way that didn't involve getting hit. Very easy to kill, but, like, almost guaranteed to get hit once by everything. And it starts to add up, especially because the economy in that game seems a lot harsher. Like, turning in port reports doesn't make you nearly as much money. So, more expensive to constantly be resupplying the ship. You get fuel for free more frequently, but you still have to buy your supplies, so you're making a lot less money. And also, it is more of a pain to repair your ship. I don't know, I dare say this game starts out a little easier, a little bit more friendly to the player, and that probably helped me ease into it a bit. I'm going to miss the dock entirely. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing for a game to be, like, both hard and unwelcoming to new players at the beginning. Lord knows I played enough Dota. But I don't know, I guess I can't put exactly into words the feeling that I had while playing Sunless Seas. And I figured the second time it would be better, since I already know Sunless Skies and everything. It wasn't really. Okay, well, we're not likely to get the good terror reduction. We could get a Savage Secret instead, which we actually don't have any of, right? Yeah, sure, we'll volunteer a crew member for the tests. Your chosen crew member returns to the engine with a startled expression and a slight limp. What happened? They try to explain. Occasionally, their explanation shifts into Flemish, a language that, until today, they did not speak. Well, that's very unfortunate for them, but hey, we got something out of it. Okay, no, sorry, this is not the button I want. I want the Royal Society. Let's introduce ourselves. Technically, I'm a captain now. Some new information. A new life situation for Sister Patel. Let's write ourselves a port report, and then I think we probably don't want to get involved in all of the shenanigans and intrigue here, but we do want to go through a couple of these early things. So we can buy both supplies and fuel here. I think I'm inclined to take a terror reduction over free supplies. We do not need a ton of money. I put myself in a position where I have to click through some text. So, situation here is a little bit different than it was for the Archivist. Who might Sister Patel want to engage with? Maybe should go back and read the text a little bit. Senatorial Professor, Chair for Effulgent Sciences, the Lecturer for Imperial Affairs. Probably she would shy away from the Lecturer for Imperial Affairs just because that sounds like a government official. What about this Senatorial Professor? He affords sly smiles from under his blindfold between slurpings of mushroom. He appears to enjoy playing the devil's advocate. Oh, he's a little adversarial. She might actually be totally into that. He grins broadly as you find yourself arguing for the abolition of astronomy as a charlatan's art. You must have done adequately, however, for he toasts you once you finish, before he resumes feeding his large pet spider beneath the table. The second course ends with the lecturer in Imperial Affairs telling a rather ribald joke, and a hearty toast to the continued health of all present. Okay, let's talk to the professor some more over the next course here. He has procured brandy from somewhere. His port is shamefully neglected. He pours you a measure of amber liquid. I'm sorry, it's a sherry glass. We're not allowed to use brandy glasses anymore after what happened last time. He waggles his eyebrows meaningfully and swirls his glass. I apologize for our fractiousness. London isn't allowing us to move the telescope. They've got it pointed at barren sky. Our research is on hold until we get official word. Maddening. The third course comes to a close with a great moaning and heartfelt but false protestations that one couldn't possibly manage cheese and biscuits after all this. There is always more room. Alright. He reaches out to shake your hand. I shall endeavor to instruct you more kindly than I was. I hope I shan't give you cause to regret your choice. Listen, we won't be around long enough to regret anything here. Hey, what's up with my soul? Soul appears damaged, scorched, reckless, dangerous, and fatally curious. Okay, that's fair. And overly willing to please, envious, obsequious? I think the presiding deviless is maybe off of her game today. That doesn't sound like me at all. Okay, well, it looks like we are not going to see... Basically what I was doing here is just looking around for officers who might want to be recruited. Doesn't seem there are any about. So, sure, I'll take more tea on board. Why wouldn't I? And then also fuel and supplies. Oh. Right, I have less hold space than I'm used to. Who was it that wanted munitions? We could go back through the floating parliament, I guess. You know, we don't need to make the money that badly. That's not that big a deal. Let's grab one more crate of supplies and head back to London. Oh, that's right. Trains pointed the wrong way. Listen, I had rather a lot of brandy. I don't need to be criticized by the likes of you out there driving your trains all sober. I wonder if we could do the Wreck of the Boatman story again. Let's go check. I'm really not at all sure what resets and what doesn't between characters. This will be enlightening. Also, maybe we'll run into some stuff to mine out there. I think we've done that in the past. I am holding out hope, although I'm talking about not wanting to be in Albion too much. I am holding out hope that part of Sister Patel's adventures will be figuring out a way to kill the Clockwork Sun. It's possible that if we just, reduce the strength of the sun quality to 0, maybe that will be enough. But I'm going to be honest with you, I'm hoping for something a little bit more explosively conclusive. So I really do think the only thing we need to do in London, or the only thing we need to do in Albion, is get access to the New Street Line. Your locomotive is still riddled with guests. It turns out we were not as lucky as I thought we might have been. After the guests withdraw back into the hidden corners and crannies of your engine, you inspect the room. They crushed some of our crew. It looks like the boil was attracted to a locket from a stoker's sweetheart which had fallen under a bunk. Well, we cannot make the crew cast out our keepstakes. Again, we're really bad at convincing people of things. Through any method other than, blackmail and the threat of force, I guess. Scour the cabins. This won't get rid of your guests, but might keep the situation from worsening. Let's hope. The crew set about removing any evidence of personality. They tidy away their personal effects, they fold away their clothes, they make their beds with hospital precision. They deploy mops, buckets of steaming water, and brick-like bars of soap. When they find a guest, they scour it with steam or drop it with a pair of tongs into a boiling kettle. Afterwards, the cabins are reduced to blank institutionalism. They gleam coldly and reek of carbolic. The guests' spirits seem dampened. Wow, that was a lot of crew lost. Yeah, we're in a little bit of a situation here. What is our safe crewing value? Is it 8? It is, okay. Well, we could not afford another one of those episodes. And sadly, we really have no way of preventing one. What if I just shouted at the guests a lot? We're not very convincing, but I am good at yelling. This might spawn an enemy, but we'll probably be okay even if it does. Enter through a yawning tear in the hull and loot it. We could mourn the dead, but honestly, our terror is not that high. Let's find out what's in here. Your boarding party follow you gingerly through the rent in the wreck's side. What do we want? Munitions, cool stuff from the captain's quarters. I'm a big fan of cool stuff from the captain's quarters. We gained an otherworldly artifact. Well, that's a shame. It's not very valuable at all. Okay, so is the wreck of the boatman plot still resolved? No, it is not. Okay, there's not actually a reason for us to do this because we don't have the Tales of Terror necessary to complete it. Just gathering information. So some things will have stuck around and some things won't, and we're going to have to just probe each thing individually to know which list it belongs on. That's a little tiny bit inconvenient, but if they didn't do it this way, if they just left it so everything that one of your captains had done stayed done, it would be probably pretty easy to get into a situation where you have a new captain in your lineage who is low level because you start at a lower level than the previous captain, but doesn't have enough stuff to do to level up. And also, I guess you'd be missing out on sources of a lot of the rarer peculiarities. Probably could have just gone north. We can swing through the Royal Society and restock. Just buy back the point of fuel and supplies that we spent there. Does it seem like this stuff is burning faster to anybody else? Do our stats have an effect on that? No, I guess not. Arts is the skill of convincing and enduring. Yeah, I could see that being... I could see those both being things that Sister Patel's not great at. My feeling is she has a little bit of a temper, and she's not particularly good at just being okay in an uncomfortable situation. The Archivist was a nervous wreck, but he was able to keep that mostly internal. Alright, hey everybody, we're back. We loved your barrels of fuel and crates of supplies so much that we had to come back for more. Okay, undocked, back up, don't almost slam into anything at all. There we go, she's learning how trains work. The Archivist had significant experience, both hanging out in the rail yards and actually as a member of the crew. But I think it's possible that Sister Patel has never been part of a train crew before. Not exactly the sort of leisure activity she would have had access to in her youth, and then after that she was busy robbing people and going to jail. And probably reading. Probably a lot of time spent reading. Although some of that in jail. Maybe some of it while robbing people, you know, it's an ambitious move. But if I got robbed by a dude who had his nose buried in a book the whole time, you know, sort of like impatiently waving with the weapon like, come on, I have things to do, I'm working through this chapter. I gotta say, I would view that as a bit of a power move. I would be intimidated by that dude. So unfortunately we're going back to London with half of the port reports that we need. I'm trying to think, is there anything that we actually want to do in the Reach? We might swing through each port once, and that might be a thing that I do off camera. We're way less likely to run into an interesting combat encounter in the Reach than we are here in Albion, where there are still monsters that we don't really know very much about. Although, maybe things in the Reach progress a little bit as your character develops. Because like I said, I did run into curators in the Reach eventually. Oh god, the guests. Arjun continues to play host to a burgeoning population of uninvited guests. This is part of why we're going back to London, is because I desperately need to repair the hull before they tear the thing apart. The guests are drawn to companionship. Forbid the crew from fraternizing. This will not get rid of your guests, but might keep their numbers down. We are unlikely to succeed here. Your rules are numerous. No games, no music, no jokes, no conversation after 7 o'clock. But the crew in Cabin 4 thought there'd be no harm in furtive midnight game of cribbage. A flood of enthusiastic guests flood their cabin. By the morning, the guests have gone again, leaving only the smeared remains of cabin occupants and a handful of cards. Well, we are now at exactly the safe operating threshold. And we lost supplies, but I'm not too worried about that. We'll make it back to London as long as we don't lose any more crew. Then again, even if we do lose more crew, mostly what we need to do between here and London is drive straight. How many people can that really require? It is quite a distance, I suppose. There's a lot of shoveling coal into the boiler, probably. I'll be perfectly honest with you, don't really know how trains work. Maybe, given that I'm somewhere between 30 and 40 hours into this game, I could have looked something up at some point, just so I would not sound like a total idiot on the recording. But that sounds like a lot of work. Not even work so much as a thing that I would just have to remember to do. Good lord. Remember when I was talking about how London felt smaller, more compact, easier to travel around? Something about this leg of the trip in particular. You know what it might be? It might be that just going straight feels longer than turning, because at least when you're going through like the alleys of the Reach, you are constantly engaged. I don't know if this has been made obvious through the many hours of gameplay that you have probably seen from me by now, but I'm not like a particularly patient person. I've always had trouble with that. Maybe it's role-playing. That's what it is. I don't actually have character flaws. It's all role-playing. You know, Sister Patel wouldn't be used to the time, the distances, the long quiet between locations. And so she's very frustrated, and I'm just trying to communicate that to you all emotionally. While, of course, not having any character flaws of my own, that's ridiculous. So if we dock at London while there are guests on the ship, probably, the amount of sentiment out there in London has to be pretty huge. Maybe they'll all just leave of their own volition? Wouldn't that be nice? Oh, we should definitely hire on some more crew. Oh, I am bad at convincing people to join up. I think I took having high hearts for granted. Alright, what does it mean to fail this recruitment mission? Is it just, yeah. Okay, it's just you don't get quite as many crew as you wanted. That's fine, as long as we got people. Alright, we're going to spend a lot of money here. But it's worth remembering that we still have thousands of sovereigns worth of trade goods sitting in the bank. Oh hey, the option to deal with your unwanted guests. Fortunately, the guests are sufficiently despised that associations of volunteers have formed at major ports to evict them from visiting locomotives. There is no charge. The guests are a menace to shipping. The association's workers gather outside your engine, sleeves rolled up. They've brought an amateur brass band along. The guests, a volunteer claims, cannot abide the tuba. Weird. Once the volunteers have stripped your engine bare and piled its contents on the platform, the band strikes up in your galley. Soon the guests begin to squirm frantically from your engine. You can't blame them. As each emerges, it is scooped up with a shovel and popped into a steel bucket, which is then rolled away to destinations unknown. Well, I guess let's hope that these people are not doing anything nefarious with those. Let's turn in our port reports. It was 4 gratitude, right? Yeah, alright. I guess let's get back out there and do a little bit more. It really does... Oh, I gotta... Sorry, I had to, at the very least, bank all this tea. Here we can probably just sell this. We're never gonna have 50 hearts. It's just not gonna happen. Then again, we're also not short on money. I guess let's not say never. What do we want to sell here? I should definitely sell some of this stuff. We have 4 caddies of tea in the bank. That's probably going to be enough. We probably don't need all of this. We'll keep a couple more. We'll bank 6. Why 6? No reason. That's a very arbitrarily chosen number. But I feel like that'll probably be enough for any prospect we might come across, maybe. That I actually am already feeling the pinch of only having 24 hold slots. Alright, so 2 more port reports. Is it... Maybe it's the Most Serene Mausoleum and the Home Bureau? Yeah, hold on. those are not that far apart. We'll go ahead and we'll grab three. We'll grab 3 words. Literature. To drop off. May as well. Also, we are already down to 4 supplies. I'm telling you, it really feels like they're getting consumed faster than usual. Okay. Now we go. So I guess we'll go to the Avid Horizon first. I can't remember, is there anything that would be beneficial for us to do down there? I'm trying to think if there were any quest lines that I guess we can just check. The part of the value of going to 2 different ports is that we will at least get to check for more officers. It's entirely possible, right? The navigator or whoever might be hanging around. If it is the case that officers are always in the same map, because we know for a fact they don't always appear at the same port. We saw that navigator in a bunch of different ports before we hired him. But if it is the case that they're always on the same map, I think that the Clayman might have been the only person that we saw on this map. Also, speaking of the Clayman, we probably ought to have a quick chat with him. Oh, he needs nectar. Okay. We'll have a quick chat with him once we go back to London. I think most of the officers we picked up, we actually got in Albion. Not Albion, in the Reach. One thing I am definitely curious about is where the Incognito Princess's storyline was going. I mean, I guess the devil is interesting too. On. Cool down, cool down. These grave robbers are tough as hell. Let's try to get over here behind some cover. If I can turn around safely. And how do you like it? Now I have one of those. We could strip it for parts. We could steal. Wow, you really have to have a high Veils roll to be any good at this. I feel like we didn't do this because of the fact that it was a Veils roll and we used to be bad at them. So let's search for valuables. What have they stolen from the sleeping dead? Anything valuable will have been carefully concealed. You'll need to think like a grave robber. Ooh, that is valuable. The small hold's been turned into a meat locker. Within, corpses are strapped to tables. You close the door and look elsewhere. A false compartment contains fabrics torn from the dead. Winding sheets and burial gowns and Sunday best. You take the most obviously expensive. Okay, that is valuable. It's also not something we've come across very many times, so I think I am inclined to hold on to it rather than sell it. If we end up needing it, I don't know how how we would feel at all guaranteed of being able to get more, you know? And my plan was to go to the Home Bureau first. Should we just swing through the mausoleum? Because it's... Yeah, probably, because we're right here. Whoa! Just caught him mid-charge attack there. I forgot to detonate it. Not a big fan of him staring right at me like that. Also, he's very loud. I apologize for that, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and consider this because stories like that are pretty valuable to us right now. Some kind of anomaly occurring up there. So the homing capacity of this thing seems to only work some of the time. Like, sometimes it arcs a little bit, and sometimes it goes very close to them without arcing at all. Let's just loot the hold. Found ourselves a solid crate full of ministry stamped permits. Okay. Maybe not a super important thing to have, but we don't currently have any, I don't believe, so... I don't remember what I was saying before we got in a fight. I was saying it, so it can't have been that important. Are we anywhere near 5? No, we gained 3 sky stories and then I immediately got rid of them. So we're nowhere near moving our ambition forward, and maybe that's for the best right now, until we, at the very least, assemble a functional crew and get our stats up a little bit that way. Okay, Kensington Station. Let us be escorted inside. We know all about the early stuff here. There are protocols that must be followed in the mausoleum. Don't imagine we're much for protocol. Right, a port report, which is what we're really here for. And then I suppose there's no reason not to approach the Deathless and speak with the Duchess. Who knows when we might need... Oh, right, hearts. I'm terrible at hearts. She glides along the flagstones, a great train of scarlet cloth following her like the telltale trail of blood in a penny dreadful. Today she is menacing the footmen, loudly inquiring after their physiques and their athleticism. She requires only the fittest to survive her mock battles. She notices your gaze, but after looking you up and down merely sighs. Insufficient, she says, before gliding away. You cannot help but notice the smears of drying blood on her brocade, nor the wash of crimson that trails in her wake like a red tide. Okay, we do not get free favor all the time, because we do not have the hearts necessary. Ooh. Like I said, we don't see this stuff very often. And then... I don't know. Just get more... We're burning through it pretty quickly. Yeah, so it seems like there's a whole bunch of interactions that I have been thinking of as basically free that turn out to instead be hearts checks that we cannot pass anymore. Our interactions with the world may be quite different. More different than I thought they were going to be. Alright, so I guess we'll head up and around like that to the home bureau. Scribe spinsters. Maybe a curator or two. We should be a little better at fighting scribe spinsters, I think. It is, of course, worth remembering that the new weapon is only actually more damaging than the mangonel if we actually hit with the projectile. It exploding near the enemy is not good enough. Okay, I don't really want to crash into the dreadnought here. Okay, here we go. This guy is very close. He's also extremely determined to kill me and not these dreadnoughts. It's a cantankery over there. I guess we could just go kill that. Let us break into the captain's cabin. I was really hoping to be able to recover some hull. Okay, hours. I guess that's something. Oh, they killed him. Well, good enough for me. Maybe we'll be able to scavenge some hull from him. In the cases where the amount of hull that you get from doing that is linked to a stat, I believe it's always linked to mirrors. Oh yeah, we have to go up this way anyway. I believe it's always linked to mirrors, so we should still be okay at that. Well, he's just gonna ram straight into that rock, huh? Okay, those trains actually have pretty good brakes. Someday I would like to kill one of those just to see what they drop. But that's probably going to be a later sort of thing. That's right, we have to go over the edge of the storm to get down this way. What was that? Oh, I think it's like a gnarled root hanging off the ground. Oh no, it's a rock. It's a rock that's just barely visible through all the storm. We are getting a little terrified. Maybe a little more terrified than I would like to be. I guess we're planning to head to the Plan to head back to the Reach soon. At least we know how to take care of terror there. Alright, so just stick along the edge of this. Don't fly out in the middle. Hopefully everything will be fine. I'm trying to remember if we've seen any other enemies in this area. Oh, that is definitely something we can mine. Yeah, let's go grab it. Although how valuable is it to have ours on board when terror is high anyway? Does seem like they always cause problems. Oh, right, one of those. Well, it knows we're here now. Wonder if we can kind of like arc this around the rock. Oh, I think it actually took damage from that. Yeah, this is an alright weapon. What do we get from these balls? I do not want to spend supplies to do anything, so let's just chisel some precious stones from it. That's a fair amount of money, actually. I definitely heard gunfire, which is probably a good thing. It means that either there's dreadnoughts over here, who will protect us to some degree, or there's at least enough different kinds of enemies over here that they're fighting each other and they will maybe ignore us. Alright, let us explore the horizon's threshold. What might we find on this bleak waste? Perhaps somebody asking for something I can afford to part with. A wooden mooring post has been hammered into the ice before the Watchers. It is a gesture toward a tradition from before the wilderness, from a sunless sea, when the condemned could beg for forgiveness on the most distant shore. A sign has been hammered onto the pillar. If you've done something that can't be forgiven, if there is no place left to run, if you would seek refuge with the gentleman, record your name and crime. It is barely legible under a thick coat of frost. I guess let's have a look at it. You pick scraps of paper from the post, a fragmentary catalogue of sin. Each describes a crime, a betrayal, but nothing new to you. The London press has already chewed through these events with relish. The brutalities make for grim reading all the same. But one remorse-filled confession of murder swears it'll never hurt a person again. Perhaps that is, in some way, a comfort. Yeah, maybe. Okay, another one of these. Well, it knows we're here. Okay, the good news is they do seem to be pretty interested in fighting each other. But also, we should make our presence known. Actually, I'm way more worried about the deranged dreadnought than I am about the scribe spinster. Well, his projectiles track quite a bit, huh? I think these things are considerably more dangerous. Wow. That's a reaction. I mean, I guess I'll take it. Oh good, even more enemies. We can gain panes of stained glass. I really don't want to do anything that's going to gain us additional terror. Alright, abandon the attempt. Let's not lose any crew here. We don't have enough crew to be able to afford it. Oh good, the burrower's breath. It turns out the burrower is still mad at us. Or maybe he's just mad at everybody. If we permit the sacrifice, it might remove the burrower's wrath. I'm not sure why we have any burrower's wrath. But we certainly can't afford to part with 3 crew, so drive blindly through the fog. We are at least still pretty good at mirrors. And hey, it's a good story, right? I reflexively just fired at point-blank range, because that's the thing that we have traditionally been good at doing. And remember that I can blow myself up with this this weapon. I think that actually dealt damage to him. He did that thing where he like covers his head. I think that's an indicator of having taken damage. Alright, we gotta get some repairs, man. Alright, well, I suppose let's send out the crewmen with the axes. Maybe gaining experience would have been the right thing to do there, because we really don't need a ton of money. And we actually are, like, right on the cusp of a level. Yeah, I might have made the wrong decision. Whoa, if that's just a normal tackety scout, why are they so mad? Alright, I think we maybe should not do any unnecessary fighting at this point. I think I've burned enough hull. I thought I was going to get away from that. Just shooting at me while I'm docked with the Home Bureau. We could purchase a caged catch, but I don't even know what to do with the ones we have, so let's just listen to this preacher shout a bunch. I'm sure, yeah, that'll reduce our terror for some reason. The detainees of the Home Office have no time for their prattle. The preacher shuffles off in a hail of cheery insults and the occasional thrown rock. Alright, let's get ourselves a port report and then get the hell out of here. Oh. You remember how you came to this place? I was called North. A memory of thunder. The Fisher Kings spoke with the wind, and the wind told them to go north. Things can be simple when you're a Fisher King. The wind of old London lived in the cavern roof. It was sullen, but it was clever. The Fisher Kings were, perhaps, its priests. It told them of other winds, winds that blew in the drafty gulfs between the stars, that spoke in dead voices. Perhaps they needed priests, too. Weeks later, through the northern ice and the dark beneath the world, you reached the gate. Its statues loomed like giants. The door was open, and the space within was filled with suns and stars and light. A wind blew through it. Okay, that's interesting. Let's just compile a port report while we're here. I know that seems awfully mundane. And then, when we present ourselves at the Home Office, basically what I'm looking for here is an opportunity, yes, to easily reduce our terror. Let's go ahead and drink a lot of tea, because we desperately need terror reduction. Sometimes it works better than other times, but I am definitely willing to pay through the nose for a loss of terror. One more time even. Okay, there we go. Now are we zeroed out? We are zeroed out. I think that was worth the money, frankly. Let's supply them with all of this literature. Planetary romances of the turbulent fabulist are notably popular among the denizens of the horizon, as is Botheridge's A Tour of Heaven. An amateur engineer gratefully offers to repair your engine before you depart. Oh wow, that is lovely. What a wonderful thing that just happened. And we'll take on 5 barrels of ours to sell at London. Okay, well, we could kick this guy's ass now. Hold on, let's take on another facet here first. So, we're going to save the Thief Oath, just in case we need it in the future. A mentor. You know, this is kind of funny. What if they did... What if they were both mentored by the Blind Bruiser? Not at the same time. Not that they knew each other. That's kind of that's an interesting idea. Probably... Sister Patel did not need the training in violence quite as badly as the Archivist did. Right, blowing myself up. And that is not a thing I can fly over. That one can be flown over, not this one. The good news is, the Tackety's weapons are remarkably weak. I see why we see them get owned by dreadnoughts all the time. The bad news is there's just no way to get away from them. Alright, the Tacketies favor scrappy, versatile engines that, when not skirmishing with company vessels, can serve double duty as traders, messengers, or transports. We pillage their stores for fuel and supplies, but we don't really have a lot of room on board. So let's just search the hold. What have we found? Okay, an uncanny specimen, and for some reason, that one did not have a nameplate. And I'm not sure I really want to fight that guy. I wonder how much of a choice we'll really be given here. This area is dense with opponents. Hopefully they'll... Yeah, okay, I think they just became aware of each other. Maybe they'll distract each other a little bit. Because I would love to just make it back to London in one piece. Wouldn't that be lovely? I think we're good. The Explorer definitely drew off the Dreadnought's attention there. So did we just get a... what was that? Yeah, we did just get a selection of Immaculate Souls. I feel like there were so many things that we didn't see any of at all until we were about 25 hours into the game. And now all of a sudden, we come across them, and not all the time, but semi-frequently at least. Frequently enough that I now recognize their icons. I wonder if that's going to be the case with more stuff. And we can see on the sales menu in London all of the trade goods that exist. There might still be stuff on there that I'm not super familiar with. We'll have to check. But I think we're good now, by the way, on Albion. We're going to go to the New Street line. We're going to go back to the Steam and Sapphire Yards. We're going to learn about the New Street line. They will probably want us to go somewhere and pick up a passenger, and I guess I might do that. But then we are probably done with London for a while. And it seems like we will not have to head back to a major city to push our ambition forward or anything. So, yeah, it might be a long, long while before we come back here. It has a lot of range. It does not have infinite range. That said, there's nowhere for that cantankery to go. We'll probably get it. Yeah, I think probably the best thing to do is just keep gaining supplies for free. It really does still feel to me like we're burning stuff faster than we used to. Also, we should actually probably be interacting with these. Because, yeah, they can give tales of terror and stuff, and we don't really have a ton of good ways of getting that. Even once we go to the Reach, we don't have the built-up gossip and stuff to necessarily be good at getting it from Port Avon. Ah. He wouldn't have gotten us with that, by the way, if he hadn't accidentally ran into a wall and stopped his momentum. I'm fairly confident he would have whiffed. And when we're up close, the Mangonel is actually still a very powerful option. It doesn't overheat as fast, but it does a lot of damage very quickly. At this point, we're mostly fighting for experience. You know what? That's fine. He wants to wander off into the wilderness. We'll let him die over there, somehow else. Hopefully, if they tell us that there's a New Street Line passenger waiting out here somewhere in Albion, it'll be like the Most Serene Mausoleum, somewhere nice and close. Then again, if we're not planning to come back to Albion for a while, maybe it doesn't really matter. Because we're not going to come back and get information about a new passenger anyway. Well, I still want to be acquainted with the New Street Line because I suspect that it is not impossible that there will be people out in the other parts of the world who are familiar with it and who maybe will appreciate us being able to name drop a little bit. Plus, it does feel like one of the few things... It's one of the few things in this game that feels like it's just like a good and right thing to do with no downsides. I know, role-playing a character and everything, but there's only so many accidentally talking people into joining a cult-type actions I can take without feeling like I'm also doing a little bit of good in the world. gotta say, I've never really understood people wanting to do, like, evil playthroughs in games. So I'm thinking, man, I have to spend so much effort not being evil in real life. It's so easy to do it accidentally. Alright, desperately in need of repairs, even though I was recently repaired, because it turns out that I'm a little bit, what's the word I want? Not inconsiderate. Man, my brain is just, like, turned right off. Not careful. A little bit not careful. Some word for not careful that begins with an IN. Okay. Now, let us win the bookkeeper's trust. So we have a ticket for the new street line. Let's request a meeting with the philanthropist. Offer to help. And then we can just leave here, right? There's no more sense in talking to her. Now we need to have a word with the firebrand conductor, who will tell me that there's a person to pick up from Eagle's Empyrean and deliver to New Winchester. We don't know where Eagle's Empyrean is, do we? It's not the first time we've heard it, but my impression of it last time we heard it, was that it was a place in Eleutheria. Maybe that's true. We have not been given any more information here. Man, maybe the Eagle's Empyrean is just the name for one of these little nameplates at a port, and I don't remember which port it's at. That's also entirely possible. Oh, right, I have stuff in the hold. What are we doing with all this stuff? Guess I'm just throwing most of it in the bank. We'll leave 2 barrels of ours. Yeah, I don't really know what to do with it all, but we don't need to do anything with it right now, and I still have plenty of money to buy stuff with. So I think our plan for the moment is, let's just get to the Reach. Eagle's Empyrean. It's gotta be, right? It's gotta be somewhere in a place we haven't been to yet. Unfortunately, there are a lot of places that we haven't been to yet, so that doesn't really narrow it down too much. I wonder if it's possible to kill the Queen. Sometimes they call her Her Renewed Majesty, but I swear they have at least once called her Her Eternal Majesty. So that would suggest that maybe not. Also, she might be dead already. We might be looking at like a Warhammer 40k Emperor of Man situation where she's sort of an idea and a figurehead that they keep technically alive. Wait. Let's swing around this side. Let's maybe just give that huge, terrifying storm a nice wide berth. And I think my goal here is to end the episode in New Winchester. I know it's become another very long one, but I didn't want to have another episode start in Albion because we have so little to do here. We have so little time that we want to spend here. There are new things on the horizon, and I want to actually be at new things by the end of next episode. No, in fact, resolutely. I am telling you now, we will be at new things by the end of next episode. Probably what I will do is we'll get over into the Reach, and then I'll fly around off camera and just hit all the ports, recruit all of the crew that we can recruit. If they have stories that involve doing stuff in Albion, or doing stuff in the Reach, then I'll do stuff in the Reach. Speaking of stories involving doing stuff in the Reach, we didn't do the thing with our clay conductor, and I think he does have plot here in Albion. Well, you know what? I'll do that off camera too. In fact, maybe we'll just stop right here. Yeah, actually, I think that's what we'll do. I will leave you here. You know what it looks like when we travel to the Reach. When we pick up next time, we'll be in New Winchester with whatever smattering of crew I can put together, with some port reports turned in and some basics established, and then to Eleutheria, to the Blue Kingdom, to new and more terrifying skies. And we'll see you then.